Hey guys, Scott here. Now for the follow-up, I want to talk about Nemesis and the new map and also some of the new perks that came out. And overall, I have to say that this is looking pretty good. This is not like a trickster scenario here. This is actually a pretty effective killer. He has a couple of similarities to killers like Pyramid Head and kind of short-range palette play like Demo and Huntress and Deathslinger and Pyramid Head again. And he has some of their strengths, some of their weaknesses. He kind of just feels like a blend of all of them, but he also has a very unique thing with his AI-controlled zombies that are actually surprisingly useful. And overall, I would say they did a pretty good job so far. But we'll see. I've only played him for a day. There's still a lot more to learn. One of the main concerns I have is that once people learn how to play against this killer, there's a very specific tactic that I think will make him a lot weaker. And it's kind of similar how people used to counter Plague before they gave her a free, corrupt fountain. So he does strike me as a strong killer, and let's go over what he actually does effectively and how he does it. So he starts off, he has 3 separate tiers. When you hit somebody with a tentacle attack, if they're not actually infected, they become infected, and your actual bar of infection goes up. Sort of like tiering up like Michael, he's got 3 tiers, but instead of stalking, you hit people, get them infected. Additionally, you can also kill your friendly zombie allies. There's 2 on the map that just wander around, and you can get a tiny bit of your bar from that as well. But the main way you want to get it is from hitting survivors. Now, this is probably, I think, the biggest problem with this killer that will make him not that good if people all collectively start playing like this. So the thing is, you get most of your power. You level up your power from hitting survivors for the most part. That's how you get the largest chunk. However, you can hit zombies to hit, fill up a little bit. I believe it takes 6 zombies to go from tier 1 to tier 2, and I think it takes 10 to 15. I don't know. I can't really tell based on the bar itself, but it takes a shit ton of zombies to get from tier 2 to tier 3. But even 6 itself, think about how long it takes to, hit 6 zombies, because there's only 2 on the map. You have to walk up to the zombie, you have to do the animation, you have to hit them, and then you have to down them, and then you have to walk to the other side of the map, hit the other zombie, wait for them to respawn, and then you have to do all of that 3 more times to get to tier 2. Now you might say, okay, well, that's assuming the survivors never let you actually hit them with their power, which is unrealistic. That's true. However, if survivors intentionally let them get hit by a zombie for the first try, they will become infected, not damaged, and none of the bar will actually progress for Nemesis. So he will not gain any tier up whatsoever. The survivor cannot be used to gain any more tier ups, and like Nemesis, the only thing he can do is now kill 6 zombies to level up, and that can take like the entire game if you're unlucky with where the zombies spawn and stuff like that. So that I think is going to be the biggest downside to him. When survivors, it's kind of like it reminds me of the Plague situation, where survivors don't cleanse. If you just let yourself get hit by a zombie in the beginning, and then that's it, no one ever uses a vaccine, the only way he can get to tier 2 and then tier 3 is just by killing a shit ton of zombies, which will take him a lot of time. And tier 1 to tier 2, it's manageable, because it's just like 6 zombies. Tier 2 to tier 3, it'll take him the entire game to do that. Now, there are add-ons that make this a lot easier. In fact, the add-ons drastically increase the amount that you gain from killing zombies. Problem is, you shouldn't have to run 2 add-ons to account for that. I think they should nerf those add-ons and buff the base gain, because it just doesn't add up. You basically have to use those add-ons if a team plays in this smart, efficient way. Otherwise, I would say for a normal game, if people are playing normally, you can get to tier 2 very easily, and then getting tier 3 is also not really that hard too, depending on where people are and if they use vaccines or not. But let's go over the actual things he can do. So first up, in tier 1 and tier 2, he has this sort of short-range tentacle attack. You can see the outline on the ground when you use it. And it can go over like pallets, for example, unless they crouch, then it doesn't hit them. It's kind of, I haven't figured out what it can hit over yet. This is just something I need more experience with the killer for. It's just first impression. So some things you can hit over, some things you can't hit over. It's kind of hard to tell. It seems kind of like what Deathslinger can hit, that he can hit, sort of. But I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't fully get it. I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually. But you have a little short range attack. Now, it is very short range. It's basically the range of like a tier 3 Myers lunge. That's basically it. It's really not that long at all. So tier 1 and tier 2, that is his offensive ability. Now, once he gets to tier 2, he can use this power to smash pallets, and he breaks them pretty fast. Not only does he break them fast, but he actually moves slowly, but he does move while he's breaking it, whereas every other killer in the game that breaks pallets, unless they have low pro trains with Billy, they basically have an animation where they're recovering from breaking the pallet. Nemesis is the only killer that keeps moving when he's breaking the pallet, which is, very, very useful. And probably it'll end up being about the same distance gain from like a Barb's Glasses demo kind of thing. So it's, they gain very little distance in that scenario. When you actually pull out your tentacle, though, that is a dirty sentence, you move very slowly. You move like 96% movement speed, which is what Demo gets slow to, except Demo is not slowed for most of his animation. As soon as you tap the button, he is slowed to that 96%, which can feel kind of rough. So, on the one hand, this makes him significantly weaker at zoning than someone like Demo or Deathslinger. However, it addresses that thing that I hate, because I kind of hate when you just get free zoning. This killer does not have free zoning. If you pull out your tentacle, again, dirty, you get slowed significantly and immediately. So that is something that you just can't do for free, which kind of gives survivors a chance to react and dodge to it, which is kind of nice. Now, once you get to tier 3, this is when he becomes like scarier than Pyramid Head, for example. Before that, he's kind of like a weaker Pyramid Head. Once he gets to tier 3, he becomes a stronger version because the range of his attack is like doubled. So now, whereas you can basically only hit people like, on the other side of pallets right next to them, now you can hit people across like the entirety of Shack or like the entirety of an LT wall. Probably not the entirety of Shack. It's a bit shorter than that. But that is when it becomes really scary. And the cooldown is also reduced in tier 3 as well, if you can get to tier 3 in a timely manner, which requires survivors to be using vaccines, or basically you have to use the zombie add-ons to make it worthwhile. So once he's in his tier 3, he's actually quite scary, and there's a limited amount of things you can do to counter him. Now, compared to all of the other powers that fire sort of in the same way, so Pyramid Head, Deathslinger, Huntress, Demogorgon, all these short to medium range pallet interactions, of all of those types of powers, Nemesis has the hardest one to hit, in my opinion. It's very, very skinny. It's skinnier than even Pyramid Heads. And, God, all this sounds dirty, like I'm talking about dicks. I can't get it out of my head now. So it's very, very skinny. It's hard to hit. And as soon as you press the button, it immediately locks you into that animation. There's no adjustments you can make. So as soon as you press the button, if it's not where the survivor's about to be, it's going to miss. Whereas, like, with Deathslinger and Demogorgon and Huntress, you can adjust last second and then let it go. So you're very stuck into what you aim at. And that can be a little rough, especially if survivors run into you. Nemesis is so tall that if survivors run into you and you have your tentacle out, you can't actually look up and down when you have the tentacle out. So it's actually hard to see people that are trying to spin around you. I found that the hardest people to hit were the ones that are an inch away from me trying to like spin around me, because you can't look up and down for some reason with when you're having the tentacle out. So in that scenario, it's almost better to just drop it and just punch him, because you'll get a hit, but it's actually almost not even worth it sometimes to go for a very close range hit if they're spinning around you. You can do it, obviously, and I'm still rusty with the killer, but that can be kind of hard to hit. It is the hardest to hit out of all those powers that I listed. So not necessarily a bad thing. It just means you have to put in some effort into learning how it works and all that good stuff. So overall, I think Nemesis is going to be a pretty good killer. I think he's going to be probably like low A-ish. I don't like tier lists, but if I had to summarize it, probably something like that. The other thing we haven't talked about yet are his actual zombies. The use of the zombies is not just to get infection. They are actually surprisingly useful for multiple things. On indoor maps like this, they can literally block your pathway and just make the survivor have no chance to do anything, and they just die. In fact, I would go so far as to say that that is going to kind of be unfair, because it's basically just RNG on top of RNG. No one is going to feel proud as a killer if a zombie walks in a doorway and just blocks it. And as a survivor, you're going to feel robbed as shit if you're trying to vault the window and a zombie's just there. Like, it's going to feel bad. But at the end of the day, it's not like it happens too often, although I did have it happen like 3 times in the limited time I even streamed today, so it's actually not that rare. But the reason it wasn't rare is because we were playing on the police station map quite frequently. On map, if it's a wide open map like Rotten Fields, the zombie's not going to do shit. They're not going to block anything. They might just, chase people, but they're never going to block hallways. But on indoor maps, claustrophobic ones like this, Larry's Hawkins, the game, things like that, zombies can literally block the entire doorway and you just can't even go anywhere. And that will be very annoying to deal with. But that's just indoor maps. On most other maps, I think they'll be fine. Now, the zombies have another side effect of actually making it so they're kind of like Dr. Illusions, and they have tracking. So you can see that zombie right there on the left, how he was kind of like, doing the zombie walk towards someone. That means there's a survivor right there. So you actually get free cross-map tracking if they go near a survivor. If they're in the chasing animation, there's a survivor there. And that's pretty cool. They can also defend generators for you if luck wills it. Here's an example of a zombie completely blocking his path and there was nothing he can do about it. They can just sit on generators. I've seen zombies face camping hooks before. There's a lot of luck involved that can really fuck the game, and I don't know how I feel about it. It's really funny right now because of novelty, but I can see that being really, really annoying. So I don't know how to feel about that, but for now, I will say they are useful. It's a very unique. I've always been looking for a new, unique thing to bring to the game, and AI-controlled enemies that support the killer are a very new and unique thing. So I like it. I would imagine as a survivor, I'm not going to like it, but from playing the killer, they were surprisingly useful, at least on the indoor maps like that. So that's overall my first impressions. His perks are pretty cool. I really like the perk that shows survivors at the beginning of a match. It's kind of like an alternative to Corrupt Intervention. I don't know if it's better or worse or not. However, I really enjoy running it for the same reason I enjoy running Bond, where if you run Bond, you just get depressed at what your teammates are doing. With this perk, I get depressed at how broken some spawns are on some maps. We had a couple of games today where I had that perk, and I saw survivors spawn all spread out on generators immediately. And it's like, hey, look, we can visually see the problem with spawns in Dead by Daylight. It's great. It elucidates the problem for us now, and now we can see it. So that's still a huge problem in the game, but that's separate entirely. A couple of the other perks seem okay. The generator kicking one seems like it takes too much setup in actual kicking pallets. I'm not too fond of that one. The flashbang perk is interesting. You have to really listen for it. It's very, very quiet. It kind of reminds me of the old firecracker bug where it made no sound whatsoever. So I don't know how effective that'll be, but it's certainly interesting and it's different and it's not bad. The mine one, I don't even kick gens that much, so I don't really care about that one. But other than that, this is pretty cool so far. The map is horrible. I don't even have to make a video about that. I said it was going to be horrible. Everyone knows indoor maps, claustrophobic, god palettes, way too big. It has every check mark for a bad map. It's just terrible. Everyone's going to hate this map unless they're like Wraith or something like that. So we knew that was coming. It looks amazing. It's so faithful to the game. I love it. But yeah, this map is awful. This is going to be like a hot DC for me, boss. But other than that, I think they did a pretty damn good job so far with this chapter. And I'm curious to see what changes, if any, they make. I think zombies need to have more baseline gain on their mutation gain. And then we need to nerf the add-ons that affect that to kind of balance it out, because it's way too reliant on those add-ons. But other than that, yeah, he seems pretty good. He's got a lot of potential. This is not a trickster situation. We actually got something to work with here. So I'm looking forward to putting some more time into him, and I'll be playing him some more tomorrow. Thanks for watching, guys.